So here in Jazz Piano Daily 147, we're going to talk about how to transform your jazz piano comping skills. All right, so back in Jazz Piano Daily number 142, we had this bass line with the rootless chords, right? And this is what it sounded like. Let me play it for you, all right? So here we go. So we have this. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's fine, but it sounds pretty flat, especially from a comping standpoint. And by the way, these comping techniques that I'm going to show you, you could play that. It doesn't matter if you're... You can do it two-handed. Here, I just happen to be playing the bass line, and I'm really focusing on comping in the right hand. But comping is comping, all right? And really, when we think about what is the definition of comping, right, it's really kind of adding rhythm to chords. Right? That's kind of like the big part. Like that covers a lot of comping. There's obviously more to comping than just adding rhythm to chords. Being a good comper at the piano means also being a good listener. You are listening to the players around you. You are reacting to what it is that they're playing. And that's why sometimes to teach comping is difficult, because we have no idea as a teacher, well, what you're going to deal with out in the real world with a player. Right? If you have a player, like let's say, for instance, you're playing along with a guitar player, and they're like, and they're playing a lot of stuff, well, guess what? You're not going to be playing a lot of rhythm. You're going to want to hold back and maybe even play something exactly like this original thing that is written here. Whereas if you have a lot of space to fill, you're playing along with a drummer and a bass player, and there's no other chordal instrument, well, now you have a lot more freedom. If you're playing solo piano, you got a lot of freedom, right? All the comping is really on your shoulders. So bear in mind that there's always a grain of salt to, keep in mind here on this. So, but the basic definition of comping that I use with my students is it's adding rhythm to chords, right? And the reason that I give that basic definition is because if you at least start to add some rhythm to your chords, it's going to sound like comping. Like I said, listening is the other big part. All right, so now let's take a look at a more elevated, right, version of this. So, all right, so now a few different things are going on here. Number one, take a look at this right in the beginning here. You see that I am using these 2/8 notes, but then you'll also notice this articulation that I'm putting in here, that solid line and then the dot, right? This oftentimes, like that solid line, is used more in like horn instruments, but it's that marcato symbol, and it basically means you hold it out for the full value and then it's short. It's basically getting this yada, yada. That's what you're trying to do. So like when you listen to big band music, ba-doop, ba-doop, ba-da, ba-da, and then you get that swell, yada, and then that short note, that's what you're trying to mimic right here. So see how I'm also using dynamics in there. Soft to loud. Now here, this is your syncopation, right? So you see now I am putting an 8th rest in front of the chords, and this is coming in on the and of 2, and then here I'm anticipating the A flat, right? Before, the A flat chord was coming in right on beat 3, and now I'm just bringing it in boop, just a little bit earlier. Okay, so now I get this sound. Notice down here, it doesn't have to all be 8th notes. Check this one out. This is 16th notes. And also notice, not everything has to be, with some fancy rhythm. You can still keep the half notes, whole notes, and, quarter notes in there. Not everything has to be rhythmicized, right? Sometimes you just want to keep chords in place. That's the other important thing. You can add too much rhythm, and that's a very common mistake. Like students will be like, it's like, yo, man, like too much, all right? Like you're playing way too much there. So settle down on all that rhythm. So it's really good to kind of put in those half notes and those pauses every now and again, and that's exactly what's happening here is you get this little bit of pause. Now here on the G7, this was coming in right on beat 3. Now what I did is I delayed it, and now I'm hitting it on the and of 3. 1, 2, 3, and, and holding that out. And notice I also anticipated the bass line here as well. This bass line was coming in just on beat 4. Now it's coming in on the and of 3. So what you could do is I would suggest take a look at the original and then take a look at the elevated version of this, right? And really kind of see the differences between the two. Let me play the first one for you again. 2, ready, go. Okay, now the more elevated version. 2, 3, oh. And again, the other thing to really pay attention to is notice the dynamics. Listen to the way that I'm utilizing my dynamics. I didn't write in the dynamics in here. And I also do that on purpose. Like if I start writing in a bunch of dynamics, it starts to like lose its whole, jazz sensibility on this. I really feel like the dynamics, it's a personal thing. You get to decide what dynamics you want to use, but use dynamics. Dynamics and articulation are super important in jazz piano to really get the legitimacy of that sound. Otherwise, it sounds flat and it sounds boring, right? So you want those dynamics and that articulation. Remember the articulation, the longs, the shorts, right? The dat, 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 holding it out, legato, staccato, dynamics, soft, loud, So play around with that. You do that along with some of that syncopation, the anticipations, right? So you see the syncopation that we have going on here. What is syncopation? Basically the alternation between playing on the beat and off the beat. Pretty simplified way of thinking about it. But syncopation is playing on and off the beat. All right? If you play off the beat all the time, it's not going to sound syncopated. If you play on the beat all the time, it's also not going to sound syncopated. You really need that alternation between some rhythms are on the beat, some rhythms are off the beat. What is on the beat? 1, 2, 3, 4. What's off the beat? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So all those ands are off the beat. All the numbers are on the beat, right? So if you do 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 right? You can hear that syncopation. It's the alternation between on the beat and off the beat. So if you think about those ideas and you really try practicing those ideas and bringing them into your practice routine, you're going to notice a change and a transformation in your comping. Now, a great way of starting with this is you could start with Angel Eyes, doing that, or you could just use even a simple blues. What you want to make sure is that don't glom on a bunch of extra things that you have to try and remember and figure out. What I mean by that is if you don't really know these chords, all right, well then don't try improving your comping skills on chords that you're not super comfortable with. You'd be better off just going with a basic blues. Just do a 3-chord blues and try working on your comping skills there. Remember, we did a blues with the blues bass line a little earlier back in Jazz Piano Daily. So you can go back to that. That would be absolutely fine. But you want to make sure that you know your chords and know the progression that you're playing before you try improving your comping skills. Otherwise, you're going to have to try and remember the chord while also trying to do these other techniques, and it's all going to fall apart, right? Remember, one thing at a time. One thing at a time. You will get to the goal line, but you will not get there trying to do 10 things at once. I guarantee you. How do I know? I've been doing this a long time. I've worked with thousands of students. I have data on this. I know it will not work. So if you want to get to that goal line, focus on one, maybe two things at the same time, and that's it, right? Let everything else sit. So if you want to get better at comping, make sure you know the chords and the progression that you're trying to work on. All right, that's it. I will see you all in the next lesson. To get the first 45 pages of music for free, just go back to jazzpianodaily.com. If you liked the video, please be sure to click the like button and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. To watch the rest of the lessons in this series, just click on the playlist to the right of this arrow. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.